Welcome to Living Life Vacation, the show where we live our best, find others doing the same. I'm Joe,
I'm Gary.
and this is Charlie from Stand Up Outfitters. Today we're going to learn about outdoor water activities that you can enjoy while you're on vacation.
And today we're podcasting from Stand Up Outfitters in New Bern. Check out their website at standupoutfitters.com.
And so one of the things I thought we would do differently today is we would maybe insert some morning trivia.
Ooh, trivia.
Yes. So what are the top 3 water sports activities to try on vacation? What do you think?
Let's see. Jet skis and pontoon boat rental.
That could be one. That could be one.
No offense, I'm just shooting in the dark.
I mean, we do. We
No
are
offense.
in
I'm just picking the ones in New Bern that I've seen other than the.
we are in like a paddleboard shop, so I
guess
would think that would probably be one of them.
Oh, it could be paddleboard.
It would make
right.
would make a lot of
How about
sense.
that?
So paddleboarding,
Uh-huh.
kayaking and paddleboarding
Cool.
are top. Jet ski, you were right, and the other one is parasailing. Believe it or not, parasailing is a very popular outdoor. I don't think of that has been a sport though. I think that more has been a
It's an activity.
excursion. Yeah,
I guess
activity.
pontoon
Yeah.
boating wouldn't be a sport unless there's a nice slide on it.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
Maybe not. So today, you want to introduce our guest?
Sure, absolutely. So in New Bern here, we've had a company that's been around a long time. You know, started out downtown, and I remember when Charlie and Kate started this, and we really needed it too because there was a lack of water sports in the area. And I know we're going to get into all that, but I'll introduce Charlie Lewis, the owner and operator of Stand Up Paddleboard here in Stand Up Outfitters here in New Bern.
Great.
Welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me. We appreciate it.
Now, tell me, do you remember your first time paddleboarding?
I do. It was several years before we opened the store, and I had seen one. We're surfers, so we go in the
okay.
water a lot, and so I'd seen one guy on a stand-up paddleboard at Atlantic Beach, which was kind of like, wow, that looks interesting. And then actually, my wife's parents went on a trip to Hawaii and went paddleboarding and said, wow, this is really cool. You have to check it out. By chance, I have an old friend from childhood who, her and her husband own a paddle company. We reached out to them. They sent us a couple paddles. I had an old windsurfer. We took the straps off it, paddled it out in the Trent River, and it was like, well, this is really cool. And so immediately tried to buy paddleboards, and probably about 3 within the next 30 days, and started surfing on them quite a bit because I had some injuries being on the East Coast, smaller waves. It really just created a lot more accessibility to riding waves. And then we started paddling more and more on the flat water, and it was like, wow, anybody can do this. It's great fitness. It's great for the brain. It's great for the soul. Maybe there's something here.
Yeah. Did you give up surfing altogether? You still?
No, I mean, I don't separate the two.
Okay.
Surfing is, in my opinion, surfing is riding waves.
Right.
And whatever craft you want to choose to do that, I validate that as surfing. Now, in the surfing world, you know, there's a lot of tradition there, and so you have some people will say, well, anything other than a shortboard is not surfing. That's
Right.
longboard, whatever they want to call it. I don't care if you're riding an air mattress, or if you're surfing with a paddle in your hand, or if you're surfing on a board, or if you're surfing with a sail in your hand, or on a foil. It's all surfing, in my opinion, riding waves.
You know, and where we live in New Bern, particularly, is we've got so much water here, so it seems like it would be, you know, a really ideal place to paddleboard.
Without a doubt. I mean, it is our recreational resource we have in Eastern North Carolina is water. And there's so many different types. We obviously have the ocean, we have the sounds, we have the big rivers, we have the small rivers, we have the medium-sized rivers, we have the creeks. So if you wanted to and had the chutzpah to do it, you could go do something different every day the rest of your life without traveling more than a couple hours from home. So it is truly limitless, and it's just, you know, what you want to do.
Sure, and you don't need a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of facilities in our area where you can put a paddleboard in, like where they've been built for that purpose, but you really don't need that, do you?
You need less as far as where you can launch safely. You can launch at your neighbor's dock, which is always nice, but boat ramps, right?
Yeah.
Waterfront parks, anything like that will provide a great opportunity. So like in North Carolina, you can look on the North Carolina Department of Wildlife website, and there's a listing of every boat ramp, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boat ramps.
Pro tip.
There you go. There you go. Also, Craven County on their Department of Recreation website has a really great paddle trail map that's been put together by the Twin Rivers Paddling Club, and it's an extensive amount of information which can show you lots of different paddle suggestions and different places to put in.
There's a club you can join and live like vacation with other people.
They're trying.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So what made you want to open up a paddleboard store? And would you call this a paddleboard store, or what would you identify it as?
Well, actually, yeah, that's a really good question, because when we first opened, we wanted to be known as a paddleboard store. So at the time, my wife was working with some great people, but not loving the content of her job. I had been in the luxury good market for a while, and this was 2010-ish, right? So not a great time to be in that market. So we were kind of trying to look for something new. And as we got into the sport, like, we couldn't find equipment. You would go to surf shops, they may have a board or two, but they're embarrassed about it. They're hiding it in the back. Mm-hmm. Nobody had any equipment. And we also come from a mountain background and a ski background. So growing up, going to surf shops, that was always like a really kind of almost like exclusive experience, right?
Yeah.
You come in the store, it's like, don't touch anything. If you pass my test, I may talk to you. And then you go to a ski shop where it's like, come one, come all. We want you in the shop. You want to try these? Mm-hmm. And so we tried to create an environment that had a little bit more of that welcoming attitude of a ski shop that we were used to, and focusing on stand-up paddleboarding, because there was a need for it and there wasn't equipment to be supplied. So we were actually not first shop to sell stand-up paddleboards in North Carolina, but the first shop that we know of that marketed themselves as a stand-up paddleboard shop. Now, as the years have gone by, you tend to morph and new things come and they grow out of the same environment. So now I would call ourselves more of a water sports shop. Mm-hmm. We have stand-up paddleboarding. Yeah. We do a little bit of kayak. We've gotten pretty heavily involved in the foiling side of things, and wing foiling in particular, and towing behind the boat foiling and prone surf foiling. So we're kind of shifting that from trying to be known as just a paddleboard shop to more of a water sports shop as the offering gets a little bit more diverse.
When the store first opened, obviously you weren't in this building.
No.
And so I remember that, and I remember, like, what is this? And will this make it? Like, I had no idea where this would go and where it's going. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Well, we had no idea either, and it was a bit of an experiment. Like I said, neither my wife and I at the time were really enthusiastic about staying on the path we were on. Mm-hmm. And our initial thought was, let's go buy 6 paddleboards and a trailer, and let's barnstorm some lessons and rentals and just get people doing it. Because at that point, there were 3 paddleboards in New Bern, and I owned 2 of them. So it was like we had to be Pied Pipers. We had to get people into it. And then, so I actually had my office downtown. It was loaded with paddleboards, and then people wanted to buy the paddleboards that we got for rentals. And I'm like, well, gosh, we probably need a shop. And there was actually an old hot dog shop downtown, and so we looked at this hot dog stand and like, we'll take it, and spent 2 weeks, like 20 hours a day in there painting and scraping and getting rid of the hot dog. Mm-hmm. and kind of put some boards in the shop and some t-shirts and wanted to see how it went, and it started to grow. And in 2015 we located this piece of property, which is waterfront. 2015, we bought this property, and we actually ran both stores for a couple of years, but it just got to be cumbersome. And downtown was more of like a kind of a touristy, not touristy, but it was selling clothing and things like that. And this allowed us to focus more on like the equipment, which is really what kind of gets us excited.
And you have your testing area right out back here.
Exactly.
And that's what I remember. Our first young professional event out here was early, right after you opened, and we all came out here and paddleboard. And I remember taking my first lessons with Kate. Does she still do lessons?
Yeah, we because since Florence and then the pandemic, and our resources as far as employees and things like that, and even equipment have been hampered. So we try to accommodate where we
When you
can,
can,
but
yeah.
we're it's not like the focus of what we're doing now, just because we don't have the bandwidth to do
Yeah.
it. But we're still, weekly getting people introduced into the sport, teaching them how to do it, and so forth.
I think when you add all that up, I mean, it's a lot of work that you're putting in, and you're the owner or the operator, and somebody's still got to do the books. Like, how do you find time for yourself to enjoy? I mean, do you get to go out there each day and paddleboard a little? I mean, how do you live like vacation?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, right? Because you think, okay, well, gosh, this is just cool, right? I'm just paddleboarding and surfing all the time, and they pay me to do it. Yeah. It's like running any other business, but harder, because you're dealing in a niche industry with poor margins and all that stuff. So there is no real free time. But when you're working, you're around what you love.
Right.
So, I have friends who are really good at compartmentalizing, right? And they work their tail off, and then the button switches, and they're off to travel. They're off to do what they want to do, and work stays at home.
Yeah.
So when you choose to mix your avocation and your vocation, it's hard to do that. So it's a trade-off. You have to make that decision, and we kind of knew getting into this was not going to be like something that you get rich doing. It was going to be something that at least I'll be happy going to work every day,
Yeah.
and I don't even have to wear shoes all the time. So that's kind of important.
That's living like
It is.
Yeah, but so there is hard work and there is all that kind of stuff. But it's funny, the joke was when we first started, people would say, well, what do you do when you're not working? It's like, well, we paddleboard and surf. And right now, with the new addiction, at least in my household, being wing foiling, it's like, what are you doing when you're not working? And it's like, we're either, if there's wind, we're wing foiling, and if there's not, we're towing behind the boat on a foil.
So you are spending a certain amount of time out in the water each week.
If we can do it every day, that's great.
Every day, almost.
Yeah, if we can do it every day, that's great.
And he still runs a business, so it's possible.
It is possible. Yeah. It is possible. But also, that becomes kind of this nice little rationalization as well. Like when I'm out, I'm testing out new equipment. I'm trying this out, right? We can use that information then to help sell customers better equipment, to provide content for the internet that helps to explain to people the differences between this and that. Mm-hmm. So it may sound like a rationalization, but it's actually real. Like if you can't sell this stuff if you don't know how to use it, and you don't know what the differences are. The times, like one's pretty, one's not, one's expensive, one's not.
Yeah, I'm surprised Joe hasn't tried to go into business with you to do this. He loves paddleboarding
I think he's a lot smarter than
I come in here quite often.
Yeah, I mean, our joke has always been, it's like the hours stink and the pay's no good, but the fringe benefits are awesome.
Yeah,
and that's really what it comes down to.
That's what matters.
That's what
So you're living like vacation while you're working, and so what type of pointers would you give to somebody who maybe isn't, they're not going to open up a paddleboard or outfitter store. They're going to open up something else that they're passionate about. What type of pointers would you give that person in regards to, getting going, still balancing the fun, living like vacation part of work? Mm-hmm. What would you tell that person?
Well, I would tell that person to do a good long analysis and kind of look in the mirror and make sure you really want to do it. I think a lot of people love the idea, especially they get off of vacation, and they're like, God, that paddleboard instructor, man, he has the life. I'm going to roll everything up and go there, And you need to really look at the totality of what that means.
Yeah.
When I say we joke that the pay is no good, but there are some people who have gotten very rich in our industry, but it is a long shot, and it is. If that is the goal, if you're like, this is a trend, I'm going to take advantage of it and get on top of it. Well, first of all, the passion doesn't come through, and so it doesn't work. And then you end up realizing that it's just another job. But if you truly love what you're around, then it's not. So I would say just take a really good long look at it, and then just educate yourself. So in that field of passion, what are people doing? Who's making a living? How are they doing it? I think these days it's so much easier as well because you don't need to open a shop and you don't need to open this big physical business, right? You can get some microphones and have a podcast.
That's right.
Right? You can create content for YouTube and you can build your skills there. And and when we got into this industry, our main source of advertising was Facebook, which was like new and exotic at the time. And all you had to do was make a post and a billion people see it.
Yeah.
But now, like there's guys, especially as we're emerging into this new segment we talked about, foiling, it's like you have guys who are making a great living just getting equipment from companies, making great content about what's about this equipment. And they're getting 10,000 views, and so they're making a pretty decent living on it.
Yeah.
It does look really cool.
Yes, it is really cool. It's beyond. Yeah, it's trust me, it's really cool.
Well, we're getting into that next because that's what I want to hear about. Like, this is a new niche, and you're a part of this process and helping develop this and push it into the area. Is that right?
Well, certainly, yeah. It's new in our area, relatively speaking. If you look at it's really grown out of the wind hubs of the world. So Maui, Hood River, Oregon, Cape Hatteras, parts of Florida, the Caribbean, where like windsurfing and kite surfing are huge. That's really where this sport has been fostered. But what people are really realizing is it's way easier, way safer than both windsurfing and kite surfing, way more accessible. You don't need tons of wind. You can do it on lakes and rivers and small locations. It's not nearly as intimidating.
So you could do it in the Trent River.
We're doing it in the Trent River, and we're doing it in the Neuse River, and yeah, absolutely. And you don't need 35 knots of wind, and you don't have to go check in camp for 2 weeks to do it. You can kind of, most of our customers are learning by getting their paddleboard that they've bought from us or somewhere else, right? There's 2 million paddleboards sitting in garages in the United States. And they're using that paddleboard essentially as a windsurfer. And they buy a wing, and then they use this hand wing to sail it around. And then if you want to take it to the next level, then you can learn how to ride the foil, which has got some challenges to it, but it's completely doable and extremely satisfying.
So it's really for people who kind of have that need for speed, because without the friction, you're obviously moving faster. Is that the concept? Because physically, is it less than paddleboarding? Or
I wouldn't say, at its core, and we're not out of paddleboarding. We love paddleboarding. Oh, yeah. But I look at paddleboarding, exclusive of riding waves, is primarily a training activity. It's something you can do to get your fitness that's better than going to the gym. It's easier on your body than running, and it puts you in an environment that's a lot more fun. Wing foiling is more like the sport that you want to be in shape for. So that when it's good, so that you can do it, and because it is very taxing, but it's a great workout, especially at the learning stages.
It is, okay.
So there is definitely a physical aspect to it.
Well, I wanted,
the paddleboarding is something we do when it's not windy.
All the different equipment that you have in here, and you
stay in shape without having to go
to the
gym.
So if you want to come shop, it's a great place to be a part of that
but
whole
it is a really great
environment and represent your paddleboard life or anything stand up. But really, if I want to get started, the concept of this show is like, all right, I've got maybe a couple hours a week. Do I go riding a hydrofoiling, or do I get a paddleboard, or do I surf, do I skateboard? Like, where do you start if you're looking to get involved on the water?
No, that's such a good question, because people, especially today with like YouTube, and they see a video of someone on a wing foil or someone surfing, and they're like, I want to do that. Can you teach me? And it's like, well, you're looking at a pretty high skill set of a lot of things coming together at that point. So I'm not saying you can't do that, but it's a road. And what has always been so fantastic about stand-up paddleboarding is there's literally very, very limited barrier of entry. Most people look at it and they're like, it looks like a surfboard, that's going to be hard, I can't do it, I don't surf, I can't do it. They don't realize that the boards for flat water are really wide, really stable. And for most people who've never done paddleboarding or kayaking, they find paddleboarding easier and more comfortable.
Yep.
So if someone's getting into water sports, especially someone who has like some concerns about safety and so forth, I think paddleboarding is the safest thing you can do in those things, right? If you use the right safety equipment and you're doing it in the right place and doing all these things, it's very minimalistic. The boards are half the weight of a lot of kayaks. So one person can put the board on the car, go drop it in the water, jump in for a half hour paddle, and have a meaningful experience. And then you can take the skill sets that you learn there, comfort on the water, balance on the board, and say, hey, well, maybe I want to add a wing to this, or maybe I want to take that down to the beach and see if I can stand on this board in waves.
Oh, waves.
Right? So you can have directions that you can go, but I really think stand-up paddleboarding is like the gateway.
Okay.
Because for instance, I had someone the other day and they're like, I really want to get into the wing foiling thing. And I'm like, have you ever paddleboarded? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, if you can't stand on a big giant paddleboard, then going out and trying to wrestle this beast right now is not going to work.
So paddleboarding's a place to start. And then, and just in case you're encumbered
and you don't need years of it. I mean, like
Right.
a couple days is like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
What's next?
And if you have an issue with like your vehicle, like Joe, I've seen there's a blow up option, right? That you can, there's a pump and you can carry it anywhere.
Yeah, so there are inflatable boards. They're which are a great option. It's not a good or a bad thing. They scratch different itches, right? Some people would say a hardboard's more convenient because you don't have to pump it up. But if you don't have the room to put it on the roof of your car, or you live in an apartment and you don't have that, or you want to travel with it on an airplane or a boat, inflatables work really well. So there's generally ways to work around that. And the quality of the inflatable boards, as Joe could attest, has just gotten really, really good.
Yeah, I have the hard boards, and I use those more when I have a family, and it's not that I can't take the big board, the inflatable, and do that, but the inflatable just is something I always keep with me. It's like having a water bottle. If you want if it's a nice day and I've wrapped up my day and I don't want to quite go home yet, I can put the thing in the water immediately, and I do it quite often, especially where we live. But I think if you didn't live here, even in New Bern, and you lived somewhere else where you have access to the water, it really doesn't matter that you're doing it at the beach, or it's something you can use. Because I've taken my paddleboard to Virginia, and we've had the option of going there. I took my paddleboard a couple weeks ago to Savannah in Hilton Head, and there's I don't know if I'm going to use it or not, but I have the option to use it. So I ended up skateboarding more because those hills in Hilton Head were just like they were just so great to skateboard, and I didn't have that option as much here. But skateboarding and paddleboarding I think kind of go together. And
yeah, so, they're all skill sets that help each other.
Yeah,
and they're fun. And we do a lot of delivering of boards because there's not a lot of paddleboard shops, period. And we are kind of a specialist shop. So if you want something in particularly special, I'm kind of the guy for a few states. And so we have a delivery range that goes from like probably Washington, D.C. down to Charleston and as far west as Asheville, if at certain price points. So I'm constantly on the road, and I never go without an inflatable in the car, because it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to be on the road for 8 hours delivering this today, and I can pull up at the rest stop, and then there's a lake. And if I can pump up and go for a 20-minute paddle, I mean, not only does it feel good, but like I feel like I just hacked the world.
Yes.
Like I can't, like I just did that, And as Joe said, if you didn't use it, I didn't notice that it wasn't in the way.
That's right.
It's not in the way. So I really like that flexibility of the inflatables, and we've taken them to the Bahamas. It's on small planes. It's like you can take them anywhere.
So we'd like to thank you for being with us today, and really enjoyed learning about Stand Up Outfitters, learning about how you got started. And if you want to find out more about Stand Up Outfitters, you can go to their website. It's standupoutfitters.com. And on the website, you've got a lot of inventory. You got like a lot of different things that you offer on there, so people can kind of search through that.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of shifting platforms right now to make that a better experience, because as everybody knows, it doesn't really matter anymore, right? Like you got to have a good website. Even our local customers are checking out the website before they come here. So look for that to be better experience going forward. But yeah, you can definitely find stuff on our website, or just call us. We're pretty easy to talk to, and we can help you out and answer any questions about.
I would recommend taking the Pembroke exit off of Highway 70 and wandering in here. What's the address here?
We're at 1305 Country Club Road, off the exit number 116 off at Pembroke in New Bern. So great little location, right next to Lawson Creek Park.
So yeah, if you want to check out paddle boards, if you're interested in it, I'd encourage you to come by. Charlie's got everything you can think of. He also has the ability to go actually try one on the water, so you don't just have to. It's not just a shop where you just look at them and wonder. You can actually try a paddleboard, and that's how I got started. Was I tried a paddleboard when you were hauling paddleboards around, and I was like, this is perfect. So also wanted to let you guys know that we still are in emceeing events and opportunities. So if you've got something that comes up that you need a host for, Gary and I are doing that. So whether it be a parade or a Christmas party or anything like that, you want us to kind of lead up with that, we can do that for you. So hit us up on our Living Light Vacation website. And thank you, Charlie, for spending time with us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for educating us about paddleboarding and about outdoor activities. I'm interested in getting onto the foil next. That's my next jam. So
it is, well, it's cool. It's cool. Like I said, it's doable, but it takes a little work, but you get great amounts of satisfaction. And to me, that's what's really exciting about it, is like going, yes, I got that today. What's next? And so
I see a little video clip coming.
Yes, yes. I think Gary and I we can make that happen. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's live like vacation.